Our nation and constitution are full of promise and potential that depend on individuals and organizations to realize. Education is one such means of helping society and children to realize their dreams, but sometimes the system can fail us. It is in that kind of situation that we depend on organizations such as Section 27. Section 27 is at the forefront of human rights activism in South Africa. It operates as a public interest law center and seeks to influence, develop, and use the law to protect, promote, and advance human rights. Their name is drawn from the section in the South African Constitution, which enshrines everyone's right to health care, food, water, and social security. Section 27's attorney, Umunyana Rugege, is here to tell us more about the work that they do. Umunyana, pleasure to have you with us here.
Thank you, Tim.
And I have done interviews with some of your colleagues within Section 27, but particularly around education. And I must tell you that I was impressed with the work that your organization did, especially in the case of the textbook saga of Limpopo. Let's briefly look at the history of that story, what was going on in Limpopo and what would have happened if an organization such as yourselves did not intervene in that regard. Because, you know, sometimes you trust that there's government, there are public officials, everything is hunky-dory, a march here, a demonstration there will sort out everything. But it went further than that. You had to intervene. Tell me.
Well, this issue first came to our attention through the media when there was a story in the papers about the lack of textbooks in schools in Limpopo, in the whole of the province. And we picked up on the story because we work on the right to education, right to basic education in particular, and the right to healthcare. So we followed up. There was a lot of field work that was done by the attorneys and the researchers to gather the information and to make sure that the information that had been reported was correct. We then engaged extensively with the government officials in the province and at a national level. And Section 27's approach is to engage. We are not the kind of organization whose first instinct is to rush to court, because we think that the courts have a particular role to play, but that as civil society, we must engage with the stakeholders as far as possible, but keeping in mind the rights of the children in Limpopo in that example. So we went to court eventually because we were unsuccessful, and we got a series of court orders that required the state to provide textbooks as part of the right to basic education, which is guaranteed in the Constitution. And the Department of Education appealed a judgment which was recently heard in the Supreme Court of Appeal during 2015. And the Supreme Court of Appeal reiterated what the courts had said before, which is that it's a critical tool and a critical part of the right of children. And it's really about lifting children out of poverty and, you know, looking at how to make our society more equal. And that was an important judgment. But of course, the judgment is not the end in itself. And so there's a team working in Limpopo continuing to monitor to ensure that those children's rights are protected.
But, you know, it's unbelievable, though, that a right that is enshrined in the Constitution, and it's also part of the mandate and responsibility of a government department, could not be discharged appropriately. To the extent that you have to go to court, that's fine, that's stage one. But to appeal the whole thing or have the department try to appeal against whatever rulings that they do their job, I find that completely strange.
And in fact, that was a comment that was made by one of the judges in the Supreme Court of Appeal, trying to understand why it is that we were in court. We were in court because the state had chosen to appeal. And, you know, it's the prerogative of the state to you know, exhaust its legal remedies. However, in some cases, it ends up being at a cost to the services that could be provided.
And you know, that's what I'm thinking about, that Section 27 is a not-for-profit organization, right?
Yes.
It's there in the public's interest. So the professionals like yourself who work for the organization do their work pro bono.
Absolutely.
Free of charge,
Free
in other
of
words.
charge.
Yes.
We work for the public.
Yeah.
That is our mandate. Our mandate is to help to realize the rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. And this is required of every member of society. But we choose in our professional lives to take these causes to ensure that children in Limpopo and across the country have access to healthcare, have access to education. And it's the role of the lawyers and the researchers to ensure that we are part of a society that is working to transform itself to a more equal society.
Well, I invited you here because I think we need to recognize the work that you do, yourself as an individual together with your colleagues within Section 27, very important role players in making sure that our Constitution is brought to life. How do you work anyway? I mean, people approach you, and who funds you? Where do you operate from?
We operate out of offices in Braamfontein, in Joburg, and we are a number of lawyers and researchers, very small team. We work very closely with a number of other organizations, so we don't purport to work alone. We work with organizations such as the Treatment Action Campaign. We work with other organizations that work on advocacy for patients, for example. We're working closely with a mental health care advocacy group to protect people with mental illness. And so we work very collaboratively. We work with other law organizations, but also with civil society organizations. And our approach is to use the law, but not for the sake of the law, but to use it as a tool to get to social justice. And we're able to do the work that we do because of the funding that we get. We are a totally donor-funded organization. We don't charge for our services. We provide thousands of hours of legal services that would cost.
But how do you deal with the criticism or attacks in some instances where you are regarded as a third force working working in South Africa on behalf of foreign interests? How do you counter that?
We counter it by just the conduct and the outcomes of our work. The outcomes are that we're working for individuals, we're working for the public, we're working for people who can't speak for themselves in some cases. We're working for people whose rights have been violated. So there's no other agenda. We're very open about who funds us. It's on our website. We're very open about what our objectives are. There are no ulterior motives in the way that we work. We work with government very often. We have meetings with high-level government officials in which sometimes they seek our advice, which we give for free. And that's very, very detailed legal advice. But also we participate in the public participation processes that are open, transparent. We make submissions to Parliament, we make submissions to departments. You know, very often we're working on a number of policy submissions to the Department of Health, Education, and so on. So we participate as active citizens, and we are responsible in a way that we are accountable first to the public as well as to our donors. But certainly the donors don't dictate what we do.
Well, we invited you to tell us more about Section 27. And the name comes from a section in the Constitution which guarantees the rights to health, education, and other social benefits. And Umunyana, pleasure to have you with us here on the program. And on behalf of those children in Limpopo who went to school for some time without textbooks, I'd like to say thank you for doing a wonderful job.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
The organization is called Section 27, and please check the address at the bottom.